Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. I am really happy to welcome back. I believe for the first time on long video, we did a floor video at New York Comic Con, good Lord, 12 years ago for Newsarama. Yeah, that long ago. And you were clean shaven back then. It's Paul Cornell, everybody. Welcome back, Paul.
Lovely to be back. Thanks very much, John.
Absolutely, man. No, it's great to see you, and really excited about your brand new Vault comic, I Walk with Monsters. It's you and Sally Cantrino, among others, putting this one together for Vault Comics. Give me the 10-cent pinch. You were kind enough to share the first issue with me, but tell us about I Walk with Monsters.
JC, a young woman, and her friend, the monster, David, wander America looking for abusive men and killing them in a very, very messy way.
Wow. Heavy stuff, Paul Cornell. Absolutely. Goodness me. And how did you decide on Sally as your co-conspirator in this fine effort?
Well, the Vault gave me a range of people to look at the work of, and I was really impressed with her realistic Americana. But I've got to say, she's kicked this out of the park. I mean, this is way beyond anything we expected. And there was an amazing moment where one of the splash pages at the end of an issue, because we deal in levels of reality in this comic, we've got JC's perceptions are shaped by her experiences, and the monster, the beast that David becomes is kind of surreal. So I presented Sally, who's been capable of turning everything I've written on the page into an immensely detailed rendering. Like, I can just say it and she can do it. But I said to her, now we've reached the point where you can't go any further, because honestly, I think this may be actually impossible for anyone to draw. And it took her 3 goes, but she did it, and she conveyed everything we were after. She's one of the great comic artists, and this is the last time I'll probably be working with her, because she'll suddenly get far too expensive as she goes off to the majors. But she's incredible, and Dervla Callis colours, all these russets and the rust of Middle America. Wow,
that's amazing, man. No, and it looks great, and great first chapter. Ongoing series, or is this a finite series?
We're one and done in 6 issues.
Okay.
We have an ending. We're heading from the darkness to the light. We're gonna finish the story.
And final orders Monday for the first issue.
So please order it from your comic shop, because Monday's our final order cutoff for issue 1.
Understood, man. Absolutely. Well, and you're you're no stranger to the horror genre. You always keep coming back to it. Well, not just in comics, obviously, too. I mean, in your prose work as well, correct?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've written horror novels like Chalk, which, like this piece, was incredibly personal. I had a history of awfulness in my childhood, and I wrote about it fairly obliquely in Chalk. And I think with this show, we're doing the full. It's my attempt to do the full Stephen King, and to talk about a real thing in the form of fantasy and horror. And so it's from the heart. This is me telling the truth.
The metaphor is there, but obviously, like you say, it really is on the nose in terms of people that have been abused, and the real monsters that are out there, obviously manifested in this surreal monster.
Yeah, it's about breaking cycles of abuse. It's about what to do with all that anger. I mean, outside as we speak, and you probably can't hear him, but just outside the door is my little boy, playing with his engines on the stairs, and is Thomas the Tank Engine. And he holds speed trials for them down the stairs, and it'll be his bedtime in about 23 minutes. But basically, it's when you have children, it throws into stark contrast your own nature, and determination not to pass on one's own anger. To say, all that awfulness stops with me. That's kind of what I Walk with Monsters is about, and so far, thank goodness, I think we've achieved that. Unless I hear the sound of him turning into a monster outside the door, but that's just every other Tuesday.
We mentioned Chalk, and Tate Sears says, "I just wanted to say how much I loved your Chalk novel. Really beautiful and brutal novel." So there you go, man.
Thank you, Tate, and thanks to everybody who said hello. I can see the comments popping up below, and it's lovely to see you all.
Yeah, honestly, this is I try to make time, Paul, to talk to those of you across the ocean around this time, knowing that it's your evening, your time, and afternoon, our time, and I am glad that the audience shows up, and I know it's a global audience, so I thank you as well, everybody. That it's great to see you. We were talking off the air, and I know. One of the things you're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks, you're going to be doing Thought Bubble, and that's great. Yeah, honestly, man, I've never been. I certainly hope when travel resumes, in the 30s, in the 2030s, and we're all old men, that I'll be able to go finally to Thought Bubble and enjoy the atmosphere over there in the pub afterwards. I know that's a big part of the fun.
Yeah. We've got a video panel, myself and Sally and Dervla and Adrian from the Hall, about I Walk with Monsters as part of the Thought Bubble Fringe, and I've got a table, as it were. I've got a little linkable site with links to everything I'm currently doing. So I think Thought Bubble have done this really well.
That's marvelous, Paul. I forget where, because I know you got Saucer Country back, or county or country.
Country.
Thank you. And is that also at Vault, or is this your first Vault venture?
This is very much my first Vault venture. They're a marvelous company to work for. I mean, I all sucking up aside, this has been a tremendous process which involved us creatively at virtually every step, and that's such a pleasure. It's been smooth and friendly and wonderful.
So did you have this in mind and were looking for a home, or okay, that's great, that's excellent. And did they really come to you and say, "Hey, if you got anything, we'd love to work with you"?
This all comes about from me not doing San Diego Comic-Con last year because my gallbladder went bang.
Oh my God, Paul! Wow,
it's fine. It's still in there. But so I arranged to do every interview I was going to do over the phone. And actually, that worked out really well, and that got me all the I've got 4 creator-owned comic gigs this year.
Wow.
And they all came out of that. And I think it was actually better for a lot of editors to talk to me over the phone than to meet me. I don't know. It's my face, John. It just puts them off. I try and wave the steam from a cup of coffee in front of it to try and obscure it slightly, but even that, no. But anyway, I approached. I got a phone call with Adrian from the Ball, and we talked about several possible titles, and one of which was a bouncy hop along fun thing, and he finally went for the dark brooding horror, and. What I really loved actually was one of our first conversation on them saying, yeah, we're going to do this, was about ethics, was about, do I have the right to tell this story? Is this the story I know? And how many companies do that? They've put a lot of work in, and as always with their books, the design is terrific. And it was These Savage Shores that made me think, yes, I want to work with these people. It's a glorious book, and it is presented so well. And
Rob V came on, and we talked about that book. I love, and indeed you could say this about I Walk with Monsters as well, to take a genre and kind of put it on its head and have a message behind the genre. And certainly in the case of These Savage Shores, which keeps coming up in conversation, how it deals with white colonialism through the lens of a vampire, and you now doing it with abuse, with monsters and everything. I think it's great. I really think it's a way to, certainly in the case of These Savage Shores, to take something like foreign intrigue and some of the uncomfortable ideas of the white God coming to the third world country and providing the answers and solving all the problems, and certainly what Rob's doing and everything, I think is really incredible.
Oh yeah, I mean, in some ways this is what horror is for. I mean, it's always been there to let the stuff you can't let out, and that's why these old characters persist. And initially we were calling I Walk with Monsters a werewolf book, but it's not a wolf. It's something much, much worse than a wolf.
It is like kind of a angry god. We don't know really what it is. At the end of the book, and not to spoil, Paul, but there's a reveal, but it's also obscured with some red in the dialogue and red in the face, and that I'm assuming is on purpose.
Yes.
Okay.
That's JCR heroine's perceptions. She can't remember that. She can't remember that accurately. She can't remember the name, and the face is too much for her to think about. She would recognize the face again if she saw it.
Indeed. Yes, there's a nice. I think the audience is let in on the mystery in that final page.
Yeah.
It very intriguing, man. And I wanted to ask too. I mean, obviously, great timing, Halloween and all. And how are you and the family going to handle Halloween with COVID and everything?
Well, we over here, trick or treating is a very modern invention. We've had it for less than 10 years.
Interesting.
It's very much an American colonization thing, and in Scotland they've had guising forever. I mean, that's probably where your Halloween comes from, but our Halloween didn't used to have that. So there's parts of the country, this being one of them, where it's not really hugely attended, and because we have November the 5th really nearby, and that's our big winter festival.
Guy Fawkes, right?
Yeah, but having said that, we did take Tom out last year dressed as a little ghost, but we won't be doing that this year.
Okay.
And actually, we usually put a pumpkin in the window and have some sweets ready. But we've actually been told this is discouraged this year, so we're not going to do it this this year.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Yeah, it's certainly a weird time, and yeah, again, certainly, and also that part of the nerd culture that loves Halloween as much as adults and everything. My favorite go-to costume of the last few years, and it's something I can put together rather cheaply. I would dress as a Adam West Batman Penguin henchman. Well, not as Batman, but I mean, yeah, I would do the all black, and I'd get white stencil and put goon on a black sweatshirt and wear the derby and the domino mask and everything. And that's
I have got myself for a Zoom party on Halloween a full-on Christopher Lee Dracula cape with red
fantastic. That's outstanding, man. Speaking of which, and it's something I only saw a few months ago, but I knew the next time I talked to you, I wanted to talk about it. I think it was made in 2012 or so, and it was narrated by Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, but a full 2.5-hour documentary about the history of Hammer Films.
Oh, yes, I know the one you mean. I'm co-host of the Hammer House of podcast.
Oh, yes.
My friend Elizabeth Miles. And we are back recently after a health-related hiatus.
Okay.
And we're going to keep going. We've got our end date in mind. It's in 4 years' time.
Well, there's that many movies, right? Because you do one movie per episode, right?
Yeah, we do. We're doing one Hammer horror movie a month in UK release order. And for our patrons, they get an extra podcast every month. And we do amicus movies and patron requests and all sorts of things for them. But no, we're watching the slow evolution of Hammer. It's fascinating.
Honestly, it was so great to watch it, and I only knew it from their biggest movies that came here, and it was very interesting to learn of not only and Quatermass is something that I certainly was intrigued by, and also on radio as well as the live action versions, and also didn't realize that they had started by leaning on so many radio properties in their early films. And I'm a massive sucker, mostly obviously American radio, but I have come to learn and enjoy a lot of British drama, both current and going back to whatever has survived from the 40s or 50s.
Well, yeah, I mean, their earliest movies were things like Dick Barton and Life with the Lions. And because Quatermass had been the first big popular TV hit in the world, they wanted to make a movie of that because they did TV and radio things. And that's what got them making horror. And there's so many lovely different flavors to Hammer. From high gothic, like Brides of Dracula, to the really classy black and white thrillers like Scream of Fear, it's called in the States. I would recommend Scream of Fear to anybody. So yeah, it's a delight. I'm so pleased to be amongst it.
That's excellent. And yeah, you've been. I always like talking podcasting shop with you, Paul, because you've been doing it for a long time. And are you also still doing your other panel show? No.
No, this is it for me. It's
okay.
A bi-weekly podcast. I was going to say bi-weekly podcast takes up a lot of my time, but look who I'm talking to.
But that's all I do, and frankly, should probably leave a little more time to finally get to transcribing the Word Balloon book that I've been threatening for the last 11 years. And I say it to kind of force myself to really get it going and everything. But yeah, you're right. I've been doing video since the virus hit, and I'm hopefully I'm entertaining and taking people away from the bombardment of news that we're all kind of suffering through, and certainly even next week's election, which thank God is next week, and we can finally settle that matter.
I don't know if you feel the same way, but we feel that we're providing people with something they're used to. With the same, we're doing the same shape of show in the same slot, because the things that one can rely on, I think, are important right now.
Agreed. That's the intent, and thankfully, seriously, people like yourself willing to come on and have these conversations means a lot to me, and it certainly seems to mean a lot to the audience. So as always, I thank you for your participation.
Well, I thank you. I bullied you into doing it before our final order cutoff. So
Absolutely,
wow,
buddy.
You.
No, it's my pleasure. You know that, Mr. DC. And we already said this, but please repeat it. Who's illustrating the new book? I could Google, but I heard Adrian and wondered if it were Solomon.
No, that's I think that's the editor, Adrian Wassel, that you see there. Sully Cantarino, who's amazing. Yeah, if you find my website, paulcornell.com, you'll find blog pieces that go into detail on all of this stuff about the book.
And David says, shout out to Tim Daniels' design at Vault. Yeah. He's a master.
Well, that's David from the Vault, indicating his wonderful colleague. But yeah, Tim's great. I mean, here we are from Mark McGrath.
Indeed, very much looking forward to some new comics work with Paul. Fantastic books like Captain Britain and MI13. Yes, one of my favorites. Another one, Knight and Squire and Demon Knights have been sorely missed. Yeah, agreed. I mean, and really, Paul, I know that in the last few years it has been all about creator-owned comics for you. Are DC and Marvel still future options, or what's the status?
I'm not going to say never. I'm up for comics work wherever it can be found. Indeed, I have a comic coming out next Wednesday that hasn't been announced yet.
How's that work?
How does that work? It works because of a comic that has a very specific history of doing exactly this in a very good way. And all may very well be revealed as soon as tomorrow. But
okay.
They only start publicizing immediately beforehand.
Wow. This isn't from that new company, Bad Idea.
No.
Fair enough. All right, there you go.
It's not them, no.
Okay, good. All right, good deal. No, that's go ahead.
I like the look of what they're doing.
Oh, very nice. Well, and again, I was going to say this company, if that's their choice of marketing, that kind of last minute. Well, I look forward to the announcement. That'll be interesting. We'll see. Here's something interesting. Jose Sanchez. What is some advice for a writer that one day wants to be published at Vault?
Well, one of the lovely things about comics is doing it yourself is applauded and a noble thing that's entirely recognized as such, whereas still being self-published in books, although this is changing rapidly, is sometimes looked down upon. Not by me, I would hasten to add. I think that doing your own comic gives you a fantastic marketplace. And is the best way to show off your work, whether it be probably not a physical comic, but online, or partnering with if you're a writer, partnering with an artist and actually putting some work down that people can see. There's nothing like it. I don't know what the Vault's policy is in terms of submissions. I've never found out. So I can't tell you anything about that. But having something to shop around, having something to show people, especially, well, they talk about the 2 pages everybody wants to see. There's the action page, which shows that you can, both as writer and artist, describe an action sequence. And there's the dialogue page, which, if you're an artist, is two or more people talking, and you can tell what the conversation's about without seeing any word balloons. And if you're a writer, of course, it would be nice to have all those word balloons in there. I'm making it up as I go along. Well, one day he'll look back on this and he'll become famous. And he gave me some advice early on, which wasn't much use.
Actually, I think that's very good. I honestly do. I think that's really good. I don't know. I'm sorry. I hear myself echoing. I don't know why on your end, but I was going to ask too. You mentioned obviously that you've got several projects going on, and I wondered how COVID affected you in terms of did it harm your creativity for a while? Were you able to work through it? I mean,
well, I hate to say this because it's affected everybody differently.
Yes.
And many friends of mine have found it much harder to work. I always work basically out of fear. I'm afraid of not being able to pay the bills, and I have enormous margins for that fear. And so I kind of, without realizing it at first, I kind of went into overdrive, and I'm still I'm having an extraordinarily productive year born out of sheer panic and neurosis. And I tell you what, though, if this is the way it's going to go, that's okay by me. Thank you, unconscious.
You're feeding the beast. That's good, man. Absolutely. By the way, Jose says that was great advice, and he's already doing it. He's always going in that direction, working with other artists to make comic shorts. Beautiful, man. And that is another thing that I hear a lot from creators. Not only make your own stuff, but make short stuff. And then really, it's a good training, I suppose, because brevity is so important in comics, obviously.
My goodness, Alan Moore writing Future Shocks for 2000 AD. And there are over a dozen of them, and they are little masterpieces of complete stories in 3 or 4 pages.
Yep.
That's tough.
I've read that collection. I know exactly what you're talking about. Absolutely, man. So, and I used to ask that question too of the American writers about the old 1970s anthologies like Our Men at War, or House of Secrets and things like that, where they had to do a 6-page or an 8-page story, or even less, like you say. So yeah, I think that is great training on how to do that. So Josh Fialkoff, my buddy, I know when he got started, was doing 5-page westerns, and asking artist buddies to help him out, and figured 5 pages wasn't that big of a commitment on the artist's part to help him achieve what he wanted to.
My goodness, I mean, that's a great shot window. 5 pages is tough. Westerns is tough. So I think he picked a good way to show off his talents.
Is that a genre you'd ever want to do, Paul? I'm always fascinated by the British, and really the Europeans in general, like the great Italian Western comic Tex. Yeah. I love that comic. I think that's a tremendous comic. And I don't know if certainly Lieutenant Blueberry, absolutely. Mobius as under his real name, absolutely. Jean Girard, yeah.
But it's because you've created this mythology of which is to some extent ahistorical, in that one can plug actual history back into the Western.
Certainly.
But nevertheless, everybody knows what a Western is. So, somebody like Sergio Leone can come along and just do a Western that is wonderfully entirely his own thing. So it's a genre I love certain aspects of. I love The Magnificent Seven and True Grit, John Ford, etc.
Oh yeah.
And I see aspects of the Western in so many things. I mean, Martha Wells's wonderful Murderbot novellas are about a genderless cyborg killer out there on the far frontier, who nevertheless is a good person and tries to do the right thing. And the situations they find themselves in are Westerns, it's but no, I mean,
okay.
I would find myself drawn to a great commitment to historical detail.
Understood.
And also, and I'm not the person to own that story, really. I'm running away from that.
Fair enough, man. It's cool. Well, and certainly a lot of sci-fi stories are really disguised Westerns. And I know as it's coming back in American television tomorrow, The Mandalorian, very much a Western.
The Good, the Bad, and the Jedi.
Indeed. Yeah. Absolutely. And a little Lone Wolf and Cub in there as well, clearly.
Very much so. It's the way that samurai stories and Westerns have so much DNA in common. That's fascinating.
I agree. I agree. Tell me, and shame on me, Paul. I meant to go to your blog before we talked, and I didn't. What other projects can you tell me about that you can talk about?
Well, out next spring, myself and Emma Vicelli have a comic coming out for the new Magma imprint from Heavy Metal called The Modern Frankenstein.
Fantastic.
I just sent off the first draft of the first issue script today. It's in a world where nobody's ever heard of Frankenstein. A brilliant surgeon, James Frankenstein, and his conflicted locum, Elizabeth. It's a twisted love story between them. There's a famous list of medical experiments that would be of great benefit to mankind, but which would be completely unethical, and he's going to do them. And she's going to join him in that, try and hold him back, maybe try to stop him, all while the two of them kind of get together. And it's me, basically. I love Peter Cushing's Frankenstein, written by Jimmy Sangster. And the Sangster scripts really lean on the creator, on Frankenstein as being the interesting character. And in the sequel, The Revenge of Frankenstein, it might be said that he doesn't do a single unethical thing as the supposed villain of this movie. He's very much for science. He's very much for rationality. And the idea of that anti-hero right now, somebody who's willing to do terrible things for the greater good in the cause of rationality, against the enormous tide of irrationality that we find ourselves in, you can see why somebody might be tempted to go along with him for a while. And also the fact that he's gorgeous and as drawn by Emma Vicelli, who has a wonderful female gaze. That was kind of my aim going in. I've always wanted to work with Emma. We're old friends. We've never worked together.
Cool.
And she's very good at beautiful men and beautiful romantic couples. And so I've lent on that and kind of done my romance comic for the first time.
Wow.
Except it's a romance with lots of blood and medical gore.
That's great, man. And I share your love of Peter Cushing as Frankenstein. I agree, and a much more nuanced character in the British films than the versions that we've gotten over here. And I've always liked that about. And Cushing is really. I mean, again, Christopher Lee, we love him. That's really your John and Paul of British horror, isn't it?
Yeah. And Hammer treat Christopher Lee as an object very often. I mean, he's in the first Frankenstein for something like 12 minutes.
As the monster.
And he's brilliant, but the movie really thoroughly is not about him. And I should go on the other comic that I'm involved in right now that I can talk about is until tomorrow is Edgar Allan Poe's Sniffer of Blood.
Oh, that's great! I love those guys at Ahoy. They are so funny and really that's terrific, Paul. That's a great fit with you and those guys. Did Stuart Moore bring you in? Who brought you in?
I met with Stuart at San Diego, and I started working with Tom Pear. And
sure.
I've already had 2 of my 3 stories out.
That's great.
One of them in the season last year, and one of them just right now in the first issue of the new one. And I pitched 3 silly Poe stories at them, and they said yes to all of them. And Steve Yole and
Mark Russell
on the first one, and Russ Braun on the second one.
Oh, I see. There's the artist. Absolutely. Yes. Indeed. Sure. That's great.
They are. What if? Can't use the words. What if? What would happen if? Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde were written by an English person instead of a Scot. And so Dr. Jekyll becomes Mr. Slightly Less Jekyll, who commits the terrible crimes of passing the port the wrong way having tea at the wrong time. And,
Horrific.
And the black dog instead of the black cat.
Funny.
How much more accommodating and going along with it would a dog be in those circumstances? Anyway.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
I've got a third one coming out later in the run. And so I'm loving it. Do you know, when Ahoy send you a bundle of comp copies, they include a little funny note.
Oh, that's cute. It doesn't surprise me.
And yet every email I've got from them begins, "Ahoy there."
Yes, I did their panel at an online convention back in August, and certainly it was like, oh, hey, everybody, absolutely. You have to. No, great.
They're charming, and their values,
Indeed.
Their craft values are tremendous.
I'm a big fan, honestly. And man, we need, and certainly in these times, but just in general, we've always needed, even prior to these current crazy times, more humor comics. And these guys, I mean, all of them really are, and the women as well. Forgive me when I say all, men and women. Yeah, they're all really talented and really funny ideas, and it's a pleasure talking to them about their books and reading their books. I'm a massive fan of Tom and Jamal Eigel's Other Earth with Dragonfly Man.
Oh yeah.
My God, really, they had me at hello with that concept, and it's such a great idea. And yeah, being as I said earlier, being the Adam West Batman fan that I am, it's like this is a long time coming. And I love in that book in particular how goofy Dragonfly Man maintains his credibility and his integrity in this dark, dark world. And, I mean, he's had his moments of flirtation, but really it's like at the end of the day, this guy stays razor, true blue, and is always, never outside of his convictions. And I love that. That's amazing.
Well, of the two creator-owned books that I'm not able to talk about yet, one of them is a comedy.
Great.
Full-length rom-com.
Fantastic.
And the other is a kind of historical fantasy.
Very cool.
So my commitment to going all over the place in terms of genres remains.
That's excellent. I'm always happy to hear, and I don't even know currently if you've got anything in the works, but I've loved what you've done, and we've talked about it before in the Wild Cards universe and short stories that you've contributed to that group of superheroes. I mean, I'll even confess, Paul, I'm more of a Wild Cards fan than I am a Game of Thrones fan when it comes to George R. R. Martin stuff.
Well, I'm really enjoying being part of the Wild Cards consortium. I wrote a story for them this year for the blog, which just took the Wild Cards universe into the pandemic.
Wow!
There was, of course, some serious discussion beforehand as to now, does that fit into the continuity? But because, obviously, Wild Cards universe, they know a lot more about viruses. But I said, come on, the human race is always going to get its bottom kicked by a virus sometime, no matter how much they know. And so they said yes. And George was kind enough to plonk it up on the website. So that's my latest Wild Cards thing. But, I'm still very much part of that. And, sometime soon I will revisit it. And one of the lovely things is my two characters, because we all own our characters.
Remind us of your characters, Paul.
There is the understudy who picks up other people's powers at random, like Wi-Fi, and can't really control it. And I'm now seeing her being used in other people's stories, and they have to send them to the rule is you have to send them to the original writer to check the dialogue.
Wonderful.
It's so nice to see her getting a life of her own away from me. And the other one is a non-powered British intelligence officer in the 1950s and 60s, who his boss keeps him around because he wants other people to think that this man has the power to read their thoughts, wildcard style, ace style. And it just gives him an edge in his dealings within the agency to have what apparently is a telepath, but is just somebody who does their research hanging about. And he gets into long, difficult John le Carré stuff in a story I'm very proud of. So yeah, I love it. I love being part of that gang. And,
that's wonderful.
We have a very active mailing list, actually, of people talking about, wild cards concepts, and Yeah.
Well, I know that a television show is in development, and I know Melissa Snodgrass, George's constant collaborator, is involved in developing it into a TV show. And given your background, I certainly hope that that's a possibility in the future that you might pitch something for them or be part of the writing staff.
Well, I'm not sure where that version is right now. Melinda was kind enough to have me. I went to see them all in their writers' room. Last year.
Okay, sure.
So I just popped in for a visit. But no, I don't know what the state of that property is right now. But yeah, I love wildcards. I will always be, hanging about doing something.
No, I think it's a great fit, and I'm glad that you are still part of that world. Mentioning television, what's happening with you TV wise? Anything?
Lots.
Fantastic. That's great to hear, Paul. Honestly, seriously, man. No, I mean, good Lord, we love what you've contributed to Doctor Who over the years, and other shows as well, and some that we're not able to see over here. They haven't made, the medical shows in Homely City, or
yeah, I did loads of those back in the day in the 90s.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's nothing I can talk about, but
I understand.
It's been very, very pleasing just lately. Lots of things are happening on lots of fronts. This being television, nothing will come of it. One of my rules, one of the rules I live by is television never happens. But often one gets lots of nice development on the way to nothing ever happening. And nothing's happening at quite a rate at the moment. So that's
wonderful. That's well, and I wondered truly. I've been fortunate to get to know other television writers here, and both, as you say, talking to people that have things in development, and then also series like Joe Henderson and Netflix. Joe's a really good friend, and we were talking about certainly COVID suspended production for a while. They are back to it, and it's interesting hearing what's happening on the set and how people are staying safe, but able to go back to shooting right now. And I wondered for British television, obviously the streamers are in a fortunate position of being able to stack television shows and release them as needed. And maybe in some ways this is better for them to slightly slowly release shows. And again, as opposed to the networks here, the terrestrial networks that have to maintain a schedule. And I even see that some of the networks are importing British and Canadian shows to fill the American schedule and stuff, which I think is very interesting. And only means that we get a chance to see some quality TV we may not normally get to see. So how is British TV handling things?
Well, things are back in production. I mean, a friend of mine who's a showrunner on a British TV show, they're, once more putting things together and filming. So, I mean, there was a lovely period there where everybody was very, very into development. And so us freelancers were once more in demand, which was a nice situation. And that's only very gradually moving back towards production because it's so complicated at the moment. And I think perhaps more of a commitment to archive may be coming up soon for the major networks over here, but it hasn't really manifested yet.
Okay.
I think there was quite a lot in the can. So the soap operas, of course, which are made very close to, they've had lengthy breaks, but they're mostly back.
They're back. Interesting. How about audio, Paul? Because again, you're a veteran of great audio, working with Big Finish, creating Benny Summerfield among your other creations, and great Doctor Who stories and the like. I love that it's, and again, as a radio man myself, I've loved how it seems that finally in America we've had a resurgence of drama, and we got the great Sandman adaptation. So that Dirk Maggs and Jesus, again, I'm like stuttering like an idiot. Neil Geez, I couldn't think of I don't know that guy Neil Gaiman. It's easy to forget. But no, that was tremendous, and also, I mean, based on the news that I'm reading, so many dramatic companies, are really putting a lot of resources in creating new content. And I was wondering if you're part of the game over there, doing some new stuff.
I'm not as a creator, but I am as a fan. I mean, I'm a hugely big. I think it's basically the success of Big Finish that has caused other companies to spring up. The fact that there is clearly an audience for this, and I was just listening today on my walk actually to one of the Star Cops Mars box sets from Big Finish, and of course my podcast partner Elizabeth Miles does amazing things across the ranges, Doctor Who's and all sorts of other things. I'm a regular listener. Isn't really time in the day. Yeah, I didn't, Mr. DC. I didn't hear Big Finish expect Big Finish to be brought up here, but here we are, and it's good. It's good. I have dabbled in audio. The other area which I have stuff coming out in soon actually is prose. I've got a story in Uncanny magazine this year. I'm writing another novella for publication next year, and I wrote a whole spec novel across in this huge burst of creativity, which my agent is looking at, and of course, The Last Witches of Lichford novella comes out in November.
Wonderful.
So I have not left prose behind by a long shot. This is. I was talking to Mike Carey about this the other day. Actually, he's the other person who sort of does everything, and every now and then I have felt that, if I concentrated on one thing, maybe I could become known for that one thing, and people would know what they were getting from me. The thing is, I like everything, so I find myself drawn in all directions. And the comic that's coming out next Wednesday, I did entirely because I've never written for this particular comic, and always wanted to in the back of my head. I thought, I'll have a go. And I have a go. I do the things that I think I might enjoy, rather than settling down to one particular genre and one particular medium.
But that's funny. Mr. DC asks if you sleep, obviously based on all this work.
Well, increasingly less, Mr. DC. It's no, I think, like a lot of people right now, to give a serious answer to a fun question, routine is so important for us all right now. My little boy is autistic, and he's very keen on his routines, and routine comforts him clearly. And some of those genes are mine. I very much see where he got a lot of this stuff from, and so I've got a very solid routine of go to sleep around 10, wake up around 5:30.
Wow.
And my little boy wakes up at 7. He won't wake up before 7. If you try and go, if you hear him playing in his bedroom and you try and go and get him out, he just looks at the clock and goes, "It's not 7 o'clock." But so anyway,
That's great.
This is a lengthy diversion in brackets about not comics. Anyway.
No, Paul. Honestly, you tangents are welcome, and I always appreciate that. And as you know, I'm like I said, in our previous conversations, I'm a massive Big Finish fan, and again, I'm a big Anglophile. And mentioning Big Finish, and just as a fan, what did you listen to their Prisoner adaptation? I loved it. I loved it.
It's the best non-television original Prisoner by a mile. I originally thought, doing reimaginings of the episodes, and especially starting on his initial mission before he gets sent to, that's a recipe for this. Oh no, it wasn't.
It was great.
They leave all of the ambiguity in place, and they add lovely little grace notes, and like when one of the number 2s says to number 6, well, obviously I could get a bunch of thugs in here and have you beaten to a pulp, but I'm hoping we can do it without that. They don't ever quite get round to mentioning the stick in the original show,
Yeah.
And I love the fact that when we meet Mark Elstrom is very wisely, I think, actually doing a Patrick McGowan impersonation. It's not something that I think is required. It's a choice, but it's a very good choice because it means we get that voice we're so used to. And the very first thing we hear from him is he's on a car ferry, and somebody who works on the ferry says, "Is that your car, sir?" And he says, "What if it is?"
I'm so with you, man. I love Prime McGowan. I love Ancient McGowan when he was in his final years as well. He was always consistently great till the end. And also, I've seen that recent documentary that had all that incredible interview footage of him talking about the prisoner, and he is as enigmatic as number 6 was, and fascinating man.
I think for one thing, there isn't one central meaning, like a lot of great art. It involves the viewer and asks them to participate in meaning. And also, he knows full well that if ever he were to come out with one solid meaning, that's it. It's done.
Yeah. Well, it's like 2001 and Arthur C. Clarke and Kubrick's film as well. And it's better without the explanation and the speculation we could all have. And that does make it more participatory for the audience to really kind of wonder what the meanings were and things. And I agree with you on all of that. And as you said, the actor now that's channeling McGowan when he plays number 6, I don't know if they're going to make any more or not. Because
yeah, they are.
Oh, okay, because I was going to say they hadn't.
Is that Space 1999? I'm thinking of. I'm not sure.
Oh, and I haven't heard those adaptations yet. I would love to hear those.
Good in exactly the same way. They do break away, but with
the first
lots
episode
of added detail and lots of added emotion. Everybody's emoting, and Big Finish shows I really like. I love Callan.
Yes, I'm a big. I have several of the DVD sets of Woodward's original episodes, and Callan's another tremendous enigmatic character. So go on.
That actor Ben Miles, who's playing him for Big Finish, he was in my TV pilot Pulse.
Oh,
and he was only in 2 scenes, but just on set, he brought so much to these 2 scenes. I was kind of standing there thinking, wow, he's very, very impressive, and I would love to use him in something else, and I've never had the chance, but I'm glad he's Callan. I love their Star Cops range beyond measure. I was a great fan of the original TV show, but it's a pure continuation. They're saying the TV show entirely happened and they're keeping going. But what they do is they actually change the format quite a lot without saying they're doing it. And it becomes much more of a procedural show, much more Line of Duty. And it's the showrunner is Andrew Smith, who used to be a copper.
Oh, wow.
And it's got that authenticity to it. And I love that. And so many good things out of Big Finish. And the range of that catalogue now is extraordinary.
Agreed. And, I literally kind of wait every 6 months or so, and then I pop in and see if there's a Doctor Who I want to purchase or whatever. And my God, thank God again for now the global marketplace, because I really had to only hope for smart American shops to import the CDs or to go to a convention and maybe stumble on them there. And so now to be able to buy them digitally and download them and just enjoy them is a great ease.
Well, Liz has got the Grey Man of the Mountain, Sylvester McCoy, and the Brigadier, now played by John Culshaw, really well.
That's great. He's amazing.
Christmas. It's by the sound of it, a kind of murky Scottish horror story up a mountain.
Is this the first time the Seventh Doctor and the Brigadier are together?
On audio, yeah, I think.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if even on video. I wasn't sure.
Oh, yeah, Battlefield.
Oh, there you go. And again, I have to confess, I really do love McCoy as the Doctor. I wasn't watching those episodes as they were even on American television. The occasional ones I would watch, and I really loved Sophie Allred, right, who played Ace.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, great team.
I also should say I've got a Doctor Who book out this week.
Hey,
not this week. November the 5th.
Hey, that's awesome.
I've got the 3 stories I did for lockdown. Emily Cook from Doctor Who magazine put together these tweet-alongs for various episodes and got people to write new fiction around their stories. And the BBC have put a charity anthology together of all of our stories with me and Neil Gaiman and Moffat and Russell.
Wow!
And it's out there. It's out. And Christian, and it's out on November the 5th.
And which Doctors are your short stories involving?
The Jodie throughout.
It is. Sorry, it's the current Doctor. Sure.
Yeah. So I got the chance to write for her.
That's cool.
Keep me up my run. Oh, I guess I wrote for her at the end of the Twice Upon a Time novelization.
Yes, and that's the last time we talked. And truly, Paul, as in the best traditions of those novelizations that we grew up in and stuff, nice fleshing out of that story. And I really, really love that story. And I find myself going back to the video version of that all the time. I really, my God, David, I forget his name. David Bradley. Oh my God, the way he's able to, at the same time, channel Hartnell, but also give his own spin on the character, I think is just excellent. And that story in particular was so great. So I bet that was fun to play with.
Oh, hugely. It was very, very flattering that Stephen asked me to do it. And especially since he was doing one himself. So yeah, that was a lovely Christmas I spent doing that.
That's excellent. Yeah.
So I think honestly I've talked about everything I'm currently doing. I'm let me see. I have one issue of I walk with monsters left to right.
Okay.
Which something I've been saying about that book is that it's you may. I think lots of us who've gone through awful situations in our childhood kind of tense up when approaching serious drama. But one thing we're trying to say in advance with this is we've got you. We're leading you through the blues, and hopefully seeing this played out in a fantasy form. There are no scenes of abuse. There's
okay.
We in the flashbacks to JC's childhood, we can certainly intuit and understand what's going on, but we don't see it.
Okay.
And but it takes you through that situation and where she and her monster are now to, I hope, a place of hope. No spoilers there. It's the journey, not the ending.
Indeed. Sure.
And indeed, what form that takes is, I think, going to be a surprise. But so you can safely join us. Heaven knows, I wouldn't want to say whether or not any individual abuse survivor should approach any particular text. I don't think it's in my power to do that. But if you do decide to give us a try, we're not trying to deliberately hurt you.
Understood.
We're trying to sing the blues.
I understand, man. No.
That came out of nowhere. Sorry, we were talking about Doctor Who. Goodness.
That's my superpower, Paul, is that I'm able to get you all to sometimes talk about things that you wouldn't necessarily confess, and that's without the mental powers of your faux British agent that has those faux powers in wild cards. So no, I understand. If you don't mind, as a final point, because I am curious. As I've told you a million times, one of the favorite things I think you did in Knight and Squire was the creation of Jarvis Poker, the British Joker.
Oh,
and I love him, and I wondered if, because we didn't have a chance to talk about it because it only came out last year, the Joker film, and any thoughts on the Joker film?
I haven't seen it.
Okay,
A bit busy.
Understood.
The world, yeah.
Sure.
So no, unfortunately, I'm a bad comics fan.
Stop. Not at all. Absolutely. And in fact, oh, there we go. Kevin Dog, Jelly Babies for all. Indeed. Absolutely. Yes, please. Let me have 2 rounds.
Right now. Yeah.
Oh, me too, man. I hear you, man. That's fantastic. No, and that's okay. I mean, good Lord. And here's a good trivia kind of question that everyone always wants to know. And sometimes it's a struggle to think of it. What's the last film you saw in the cinema? Exactly. I love the look on your face. Indeed. Yeah. It's like
might have been The Last Avengers.
Okay, sure. Endgame. Okay, sure.
Woof. I mean, we weren't regular cinema goers anyway because
okay.
School timetables, finding time of the day.
Sure.
Babysitter, but you're right. That's quite a telling question right now.
I've been afforded the luxury of the Radio and Television Union merged with the Screen Actors Guild. So a nice perk of that is I get to vote on the SAG Awards and get screeners of TV and film.
Wow.
So yeah, that's been incredible. And yeah, and so that I think also kind of kept me from needing to go to see movies in the theater for the end of last year and even into the beginning of this year. So yeah, I can appreciate that, and certainly as I'm sure we've talked about Bond before, but I am bummed that obviously that's been kicked down the road. No Time to Die.
I mean, I'm kind of relieved because I've been to see every James Bond movie on the first day since I was a kid, and that would have been taking my courage in my hands a bit.
I understand. Absolutely. What was your first cinema Bond film?
I think it was a double bill of The Man with the Golden Gun and The Spy Who Loved Me.
Wow, that's great. I saw Live and Let Die back in '73 as a child. That was my first. And in fact, the first times I saw Goldfinger and Dr. No, they were on black and white television sets. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't until the VCR era that I discovered they were color films.
I mean, obviously, one kind of grew up with it at that point in time, and they back in those days as well. British cinemas were really rough.
Really,
I mean, those are seaside cinemas with smoking sections. We're talking.
Sure.
And so yeah, as a Bond fan of long standing. And one of the things I really liked about the trailer is that it unless they're doing something really unusual with the storytelling shape, she didn't die. They haven't fridged her, which when I immediately heard, what, he's coming back and doing another one, having gone off into the sunset literally with his wife. And I thought, she's dead meat.
Sure. Tracy Bond all over again. Absolutely, man.
But they're not doing that, which is brilliant. And actually a very good decision. It opens up so much more. So yeah.
And I'm curious about what they do with the character moving forward. And is this the last James Bond story, but we'll get new 007 stories with this new character they've introduced?
Well, no. Even the trailer kind of says that he left at the end of the last movie. He is not 007 anymore, and they appointed somebody else. The odds are he will be 007 again by the end of this one, I would have thought.
I'm wondering, obviously, as we all are, who will be the next actor. And really an amazing testament to the franchise, because the societal changes, as have happened in previous incarnations of James Bond, where sometimes it's like, does James Bond belong in today's world? In fact, I love that moment where Judi Dench says that to Pierce Brosnan and says, "You're a dinosaur," and those kind of comments and stuff. And it is interesting how the character, they try to play with it, during the various times.
I do like their moves towards modernism. I really loved Bond being in Skyfall, being kind of while being interrogated by the villain kind of assumes that he's going to be homophobic, and Bond kind of replies, "Why would you assume that of me? Why would you think this is my first time?" And I mean, Idris Elba. Obviously, he was made to play James Bond at some point in the past, but I gotta say, he's that would be a short-term Bond. He's
being as old as he is. You mean?
Yeah, exactly. There's got to be a young actor out there who's the young Idris. I'm doing Idris Elba a disfavor there. He's fantastic. He would still be a great Bond. And there's just something about his ability to do class and ruthlessness.
100%. Have they? Is that just speculation on your part, or have they?
Yes, it's immensely just speculation.
Okay, because my God, I agree, and I would love to see him do it. But also, I really felt that Timothy Dalton, as he got older, really would, and I would have loved to have seen him play Bond 10 years after his run, and even that silly but fun Looney Tunes movie with Brendan Fraser, where he kind of plays a Bond-esque sort of character. Yeah. And by the way, my God, he is so great in Doom Patrol as the Chief.
Oh, yeah, I love Dalton's Bond. Living Daylights is one of my favorites, and he really does balance all the things one has to do very well. I mean, equally, I love the fact that we went back to a jaunty Roger Moore-esque Bond with Pierce Brosnan for a while there.
Sure,
he does that great. But no, I think subtle changes throughout is how they keep this franchise going. And I honestly think it would take the public a pre-title sequence to fall in love with Idris Elba as James Bond. They would be on side within 2 minutes. And I think class plays somewhere into this. The way that Daniel Craig has given Bond a more working class accent, but with the indication that he could speak any way he likes, really. And I don't think Bond is quite the aristocrat that Roger Moore was anymore.
I understand, and that was a missed opportunity. I always had hoped, given the different Bonds that we've had, that there would be a story, and it sounded like Roger Moore was toying with the idea of all the old actors getting together and maybe a young Bond getting in trouble and the old Bonds being able to get together and find a mission to save him, which I thought would have been amazing.
I would have made Sean Connery a villain. I mean, GoldenEye is so nearly that. Alec Trevelyan is so nearly a former Bond.
Yes, absolutely.
It was the director of Once Were Warriors did the last Pierce Brosnan, whatever that was called.
Die Another Day.
Yeah, his initial pitch was exactly that.
Wow.
Was let's get the old Bonds back.
Wow, that would have been amazing. And I know too, Kevin McClory, who directed Never Say Never Again, had talked about remaking Thunderball one more time and casting Connery as Blofeld. So yeah, that would have been interesting. Absolutely.
I think Connery would have had a hoot.
Absolutely, and especially his frustration with Broccoli and Saltzman while he was working for them, which really continued. I have no idea what his comment would be today, but yeah, clearly that was that kind of stuck in his craw in terms of their dealings with him. No, I go ahead.
I tell you what, I have a few licenses I still want to work for, and I keep saying this, and I keep trying. if any comic company would like to acquire and use the license for John Steed and Emma Peel, I have a 6-issue mini-series entirely planned out in my head for those two. I'm made to write dialogue for those people, and one day I will.
Was Boom the last one to have the license?
Well, yeah, and maybe they still have it, but there hasn't been an Avengers comic for a very long time.
About 10 years or so, yeah. No, I agree with you. I'd love to see that. And it's, again, I discover these, Paul, through DVDs or the occasional episode that they'll throw up on YouTube. Man in a Suitcase kind of intrigues me as well. And again, maybe because it came from that secret agent, prisoner, Ralph Smart kind of production.
The show I love from ITC who made that is Department S.
I've never seen that. Please.
It's 3 investigators who, including Peter Wingard as Jason King, who's just gorgeously multicolored ruffly shirts. And he's a millionaire novelist in the show. And they solve completely inexplicable mysteries for some reason. And it's a mystery box show. It's a work out this puzzle show with some really fun characters. And I always thought, I mean, that format's been used so many times by other things that there's no real need to reimagine it. But that's the lovely one from that stable.
Well, to play with that era, I can appreciate that. I mean, we got the Persuaders over here with Moore and Curtis, and then like you said, the ruffly shirts and the big hair.
I mean, I do like Roger Moore being influenced by the 60s at the start of the 70s. He just lets his hair grow a tiny bit. It's just down to here. It's as I've made a concession to the hippie movement.
I've been watching his episodes of Maverick Back to Westerns, and that handful of episodes he did of those. And again, I read his autobiography, and it was really interesting how he did those, and then went off to do the same. And that's another one. It's on Netflix. The pilot to Do a New Saint from about 10 years ago.
Ooh, yeah.
And I haven't. Have you seen that? I haven't seen it yet.
No, The Saint is a bit of a closed book to me. I'm not very aware.
Okay.
Anyway, this is all.
Am I keeping you, Paul? Or we can wrap if we need to.
No. I was going to say I'm always wary of nostalgia. I think because at my age, I sort of feel that if I start going in that direction, I'll never stop. That I always think it's kind of like the waiting room for death. And,
oh no!
But I'm building up my comic collection again. I'm participating a lot in online buying, and the hunt for filling in gaps is one of the things that's been keeping me sane.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm doing it with the idea that one day when I stop working, I will actually give in and immerse myself in the past and become that that person who sits there reading the entire run of Volume 1 of The Defenders. And it's but there's that kind of thing of but not yet. I'm engaging in a neurotic process of attempting to stay young by not embracing any of the things of age, and also walking the delicate tightrope of not being the guy in his 50s who tells young people that he's really into their dance music. It's got a good beat.
I hear you, man. I'm right there with you in our 50s. I do understand. And it's funny. I started my nostalgic grab and pursuit of things from our youth, I started looking for corgi cars because I loved those as a kid, and I bought one, but they are expensive. So to satisfy that itch, I have instead been buying Hot Wheels, and only ones that are. I don't need rare ones. I need ones that do represent movies and television shows. And there were a couple companies. I think 10 or 15 years ago, it seemed like Hot Wheels sized cars were back in vogue. So they're not very expensive, and I've gotten cars from like I got the red Ford or Chevrolet from Christine, and things like that. Or my favorite is the Scooby Doo Mystery Machine van as a Hot Wheel car, and they're fantastic. And just as the corgi cars too, the weight of them in your hands is so satisfying as a toy. So that's been my thing.
I'm a subscriber to Back Issue magazine, and
of course,
one of the things I really love about that is that in their letters page, as happens reasonably often when somebody says, "Oh, I love these old comics, not like the rubbish they are now," and the editorial reply will go, "Whoa there, whoa,
yeah."
That's not what we're for.
No, and it's different. It's different styles, and as we were talking about Bonds, it's like. I always say there's never been even George Lazenby. I love Honor Majesty's Secret Service, and most Bond fans do. And truly, it's been fun watching each actor bring their own spin on the character. So no, I totally get that. Here's some comments. Chemdog says he saw Octopussy in the Drive-In when it came out. That was his first Bond. Fair enough. And Charlie says, "I love Saucer Country State. I'm unfamiliar with your work. Where should I start?" Oh, that's very nice.
Well, thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that. Comics wise, this comic I've got coming out on November the 25th, I Walk with Monsters, is a bit of a thrill ride. If you like Saucer State, honestly, it's that same playing with reality. I miss Saucer State so much. I miss Saucer Country. Where else? Books wise, Witches of Lichford. Grab the first of those. Lovely novella about witchcraft in the Cotswolds in Britain. And TV wise, well, my Doctor Who's or what you want to see. But actually, on my blog, Charlie, on Wednesdays, on paulcornell.com, I always include in the blog a paragraph just linking to all my digital comics, so it's all in one place. You can go have a browse, see what catches your fancy. But a lot of people like my Captain Britain run.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
Demon Knights, medieval fantasy in the DC universe.
Knight and Squire, of course.
Knight and Squire, and
British Batman and Robin. For if you don't know what that is, Charlie, it's a lot of fun.
My run on Action Comics with Lex Luthor is one of my favourites, where he encounters and fights other villains in the DC universe. I really enjoyed doing that. So thank you for asking, Charlie. I've named about 10 things.
No, and truly, man, Captain Britain and MI13 I loved, and getting back to horror, when Dracula was the villain in your run, I thought was a very inventive use of Dracula in the Marvel universe.
Thank you. I'm a huge fan of Mark Wolfman and Gene Colan's Tomb of Dracula.
With you, man.
That's got the strangest title for a comic, if you think about it.
Tomb of Dracula.
Yeah, because we're just gonna be at his tomb, are we? Bit dull this week.
Did Dark
after page? It's about the same. Yeah.
In the mausoleum, I can appreciate that. Did Dark Shadows make it to England? The British or the American soap opera? Okay.
I've seen some episodes on nostalgia channels just
in
the last couple of years, but it never crossed originally.
Okay, because it's they've been running it on this American digital channel called Decades, and I know, in fact, this weekend they're going to run a lot of the episodes as well. And I remember that fondly as a child, and I suspect that Tomb of Dracula came in that period when Dark Shadows was in its prime.
Yeah.
So
you can see the influence. I mean, and also, that's the height of Hammer. That's
yes. Yes.
And to Marvel, that's kind of like, well, we can have a comic based on a successful franchise without having to pay them for it.
Absolutely. Yes. But that was that period when they were licensing Conan and Fu Manchu and some of these other things as well. So yeah, I find that a really interesting time for Marvel, that early 70s period. No question.
It's my favorite time. Well, one of my favorite times. I'm also a great fan of the 90s, and I'm a great fan of now. But
by the way, Pete Wisdom, another great miniseries of yours.
Thank you. My first American comics, filled with speech balloons. If you're a fan of speech balloons obscuring art, that's the comic you want to. Because of course I made the mistake everybody else makes. I just filled it with words.
I didn't notice, Paul. Honestly, it didn't bother me. I enjoyed the story, and again, no, I really your Marvel and DC runs have been great. Your creator-owned stuff has been great. So I'll wrap up, Paul. I mean, we've been having a lovely talk.
It's been wonderful catching up with you, John, and thank you for we've covered everything. Very kind of you.
Oh, dude, it's always a pleasure. You know that. I Walk with Monsters. It's a brand new book from Vault, and it comes out November 25th.
Yep, and you've got to order it from your comic store by Monday.
Yes. So and that's why I'm happy to squeeze this in this week, and also perfect for Halloween week to discuss a book like this as well.
Thank you so much.
All the best, Paul. Truly, continued success. Please let's pick things up next year and not wait so long between our next conversations.
And thank you to everybody for all the questions. Very welcome.
Absolutely. Paul Cornell, everybody. Have a good night. My best to you and your family, man. Take care.
Thank you.
There we go. Paul Cornell. Great conversation. More Word Balloon Live tonight. James Tynan coming on to talk about his latest horror comic, and that should be a lot of fun. And more on tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to talk to Steve Darnell, my buddy who's a massive old-time radio fan and host of a great Chicago old-time radio show that will be on Saturday, and he'll be telling us about his Halloween choices. We'll also talk about EC Comics and some of the great audio horror dramas of the golden age of radio that still manage to shock us and keep us in suspense. I hope you'll enjoy it. So that's how we're closing out the week here at Word Balloon Live. Thanks a lot for watching today. As I always end every broadcast with, stay safe, stay happy, and stay healthy.